Python is a high-level interpreted programming language that executes the code line by line. It was developed by Guido van Rossum in 1991. A Python file ends with a .py extension. This is a simple Python program that prints hello world. In this program, we are using the built-in print function which prints the output in the terminal and the message we want to display in double quotes. We can either use double or single quotes, it does not matter. We can write comments that the Python interpreter ignores using the hash symbol. Like here, this line will be ignored and the program will behave the same. Hash is used for writing a single line comment. For multi-line comments, you can use triple quotes at the start and end of the comments like this. We use variable to store values that we can use later in our program. Variables are like labels to value. We can define variables directly by just typing the variable name, and then if you want, you can print the value of the variable name using the print function. Unlike in other programming languages like C, we don't have to predefine data type for the variable in Python. After we assign the value to the variable, the data type according to the value is automatically assigned to that variable. Like here, the data type of this variable is string because we gave a string value to this variable. To check the data type of any variable, you can use this built-in type function and in parentheses variable name. These are some basic data types in Python. As we saw, string stores a sequence of character. You can define string using single or double quotes. Integers are whole numbers like 1, 2, 200. Float is a data type used to store numbers with decimal points. A list holds multiple data items of any type. You can define a list using square brackets and data items separated by a comma. Tuple is like a list that holds multiple data types but is defined using parentheses. To access any item from the list, you can enter the variable name and then the position of that item. Remember, the counting starts from 0, so the index of the first item is 0. In the same way, you can access any item from the tuple. A quick question. Do you know the difference between tuple and a list? If yes, let me know in the comments. If don't, wait for the end and I will tell you. A dictionary is used to store key value data. You can define it using curly brackets. For example, this is a dictionary for a movie. Here, these are keys and then after a colon, value for those keys. These key value pairs are separated by a comma. We can access any value by entering the variable name and then in square brackets the key of that value. With dictionaries, you can easily create real-world objects more accurately in Python. Booleans are either true or false and often used in control structures such as if statements and while loops. Like the print function, we can use other built-in functions. Like to get input from the user, we can use the input function. In this example, we are using input function to get input from the user and then print function to display the information on the screen. In using input function to get input from the user and then print function to display the information on the screen. In Python, we use if statements to execute code conditionally. For example, if a specific condition is true, we run a block of code, and if the condition is false, we run another block of code. To write an if statement, write if, then the condition you want to check. Here, we are checking if x is greater than 10, then a colon, and then the code to execute. After that else, then again colon, then the code to execute. If the condition is true, the code in the if block will be executed, and if it is false, the code in the else block will be executed. As you can see, because the value of x is greater than 10, the if statement evaluated to true and displayed the text x is greater than 10 on the screen. One more very important thing to remember is that correct indentation is essential in Python. Unlike in other programming languages where we use curly brackets to indicate a block of code belonging to a specific conditional statement or function, we don't use curly brackets in Python. So indentation is required to separate blocks of code. Like here, because of the proper indentation, Python knows that this code is for the if statement. If I will remove this indentation, I will get the indentation error. In Python, we use for loops to repeat a specific task for multiple items. To write a for loop, write for and then the variable name that you want to use. If we want to loop through a list, we can use item as a variable name. But it's not like you have to use the name as item. You can name it anything. Like for movie in movies, then what you want to do, like print movie. This will iterate through all items in the list and print them. If you want to print numbers from 1 to 10, you can use for loop combined with the range function. For I in range 1 to 11, this range creates a sequence of integers. Here 1 is the start value and 11 is the stop value. So this will make a sequence from 1 to 10. The range function will stop at 11, so it won't be added in the sequence. After that, we are using I to iterate through all the items in the sequence and we will print them, and numbers from 1 to 10 is printed in our terminal. As we saw, the for loop takes a collection of items and executes the given code for every item in the collection. But what if we want to loop through a code as long as some condition is true? For that, we can use a while loop. To write a while loop, type while, then the condition, and then the code. If the condition is true, then the while loop will run until the condition becomes false. Like here, the condition was true until the value of I was less than or equal to 5. After it got greater than 5, condition became false and while loop exited. Now let's look at how to use functions in Python. We use functions to write block of code that can be reused multiple times in our program. A function can take one or more arguments and return a value. You can define a function using the def keyword, then the function name, and then in parentheses. Let's look at how to use functions in Python. We use functions to write block of code that can be reused multiple times in our program. A function can take one or more arguments and return a value. You can define a function using the def keyword, then the function name, and then in parentheses if it takes any argument and then the code of that function. For example, this function prints the addition of two values. Here we take two values and name them a and b. Then we print a plus b. If I run this function by simply writing its name and two numbers in parentheses, the addition of those numbers will be printed in the terminal. We can also return the value instead of printing them. Like here, we are returning the value of a plus b using the return keyword. And then we can save that value in a variable. If I will print that variable, I will see the value of the addition. Various people and communities have written Python code for many things, such as scientific calculations or creating games. So, if you want to use their code in your code, you can use the import keyword to import their code in your program. For example, here I am importing everything from the math module. Star is a wildcard used to import everything. Now, I can use functions and variables from the math file. For example, if I try to print the value of pi by just entering pi, I will get an error because I do not have any variable named pi. But the math file contains a variable named pi. So if I import everything from math, I can use this variable defined in math and the value of pi is printed. In the same way, we can use various functions or any other block of code from other files. Let's move this add function to a file named add.py. And then we can import it in our other file using from add import star. And then we can use the add function in this file even though we don't have a function named add here. Now let's look at how to use classes in Python.